Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm the Mellow Mama, and today I'll be discussing tantrums, how to anticipate them, perceive them, and of course deal with them in a loving, respectful way. If you're new to my channel, what's up? I'm Caitlin and I talk all things conscious living and conscious, respectful parenting with my own personal experience as a mother in mind. I have a 17-month-old son named Donovan, but I also spend so much time reading and researching and using tons of different resources that I truly love and that resonate with me that I love to share with you guys. The first question that I want to ask is, what is a tantrum? A tantrum is simply a release of big emotions, which, no surprise, we all have them. Children must express themselves. They have to release this tension. And just like us, they have built up fear, anxiety, sadness, frustration, general disappointment, but they don't have the tools to communicate those feelings like we do. And on that note, I have to say, we have all of these great ways to communicate our big feelings, right, as adults. For example, if I'm feeling just exhausted or so overworked or underappreciated or just frustrated or irritated or out of my element, I can go for a jog if I know that that suits me and that brings me some clarity and some peace of mind and de-stresses me, right? I could play the piano. It's something that I used to do all the time when I was feeling really bogged down or really anxious. I would just sit at the piano for an hour and play and just release some of those really tense, dark feelings. We can call a friend. We can even, if it has to do with a conflict, let's say with a friend or with a family member, we can sit down and talk to them about what we're feeling and why, and how we perceived something and why. We can even go as far to journal our feelings or talk to a therapist, some sort of counselor that can really take a look at our issues and what we're experiencing as far as our mental health and how drained we are from a different light and a different angle, and help us to get some clarity. And we still have moments, even with all of those tools and so many more, where we snap, where we just can't take anymore and we have to slam a door or send that angry text or make that angry phone call or write that email where we just get out our frustration, or we yell at somebody or say something to somebody that we just do not mean, but we just are feeling so many things. You know, I even like clenching my teeth because I think all of us know how that feels when you have bottled up so many things and you've stacked so many things on top of you. As a parent, this is just inevitable because there is so much to do when you're caring for not just yourself but a whole nother person, and then maybe a spouse, and then maybe more children. Like, I get it. And so should you, which is why we need to start getting it for our children, because unlike us, they don't have those same tools and they still have to snap sometimes, just like we do. So we need to reframe our thinking when it comes to a tantrum and what our children are trying to do to us by having a meltdown or acting out, as people say. The way we do that is by following that same old quote that I constantly reference, that is, our children are not giving us a hard time, they are having a hard time. Just like we are not intending to hurt the people around us when we just can't take it anymore, I think our children are simply expressing themselves because they can't take any more frustration, they can't take any more fear, sadness, anxiety, you name it. Just have to release that tension. Simply understanding that is going to be key in dealing with tantrums in a graceful, loving way. Constant reminder that we receive when we read or listen to people like Lisa Sunbury or Janet Lansbury or Magda Gerber, Rosalind Ross, is to reflect on what we need in our most difficult, trying times in life and give that to our children. In the case of experiencing heightened big emotions, what do I personally need or look for? And truly take the time to imagine that. Imagine yourself in such a dark moment where everything feels like it is falling apart. Things that matter to you aren't happening the way that you want them to. Maybe you're not achieving your goals that just matter so much, so deeply to you. Maybe someone has really hurt you and you haven't been able to talk about it, or you've just kind of let it really, what's the word, just get to you, you know, kind of poke at you, what they said or what they did. Now imagine that you're releasing all those feelings. You're maybe crying to your friend or to the person that hurt you, or your husband or wife, and you're just telling them how frustrated you are and how angry you are, which is a fear-based emotion, by the way. So whenever we're getting out those emotions, what do you need? What is it that you're looking for in that time? For me personally, I always just need a little bit of tenderness. Somebody to just have a comforting presence for me in those times. And isn't it interesting how just the thought of that, after thinking so hard about the tension that built up, like anxiety, those big dark feelings, and then imagining somebody just being there. I don't know if you guys have the same experience that I have, but I really do experience a sort of like softness come over me. Do feel comfort just by thinking that somebody would be there and just maybe hold my hand, or maybe just give me a really sincere hug, just hold me, and maybe even offer the words, I'm here. That is personally what I need in a time like that, and I think so many people would agree with me. In those times when you are just really, truly having a hard time and not intending on giving anybody a hard time, you just need somebody to be there, to hold you, hold your hand, and understand what it means to be human and what it means to be alive and how difficult and trying that can be sometimes. The last thing you need in a time like that is to be criticized for how you're feeling. And we do this to men and women alike all the time in our societies. We do say things like, oh, stop crying, you're fine, you're okay, get up, or ugh, that's dramatic, you're overreacting. That's something that women hear all the time. Even, you're crazy, like you're absolutely crazy, you've lost your mind. And you could see how that would absolutely do nothing but continue to harm something that's already pretty broken in the moment. In fact, when we relate that to our interactions with our children, when we do that, when we shame our children in their time of expression, when they finally are releasing that tension, when they're regulating their emotions, we are creating a very, very bad habit that they can have with them for the rest of their life. That denial of our desperate need to release that tension, to express how we're feeling, is going to create a huge problem. Depression is a very real issue that so many people face. In fact, mental illness as a whole is something that I truly believe can be derived from this style of dealing with our feelings. Very normal, realistic, understandable feelings. When we don't allow space for these things to happen and come and go naturally, because they do, it's like a tide. We all have days that are difficult. We all have days that are wonderful and blissful and full of joy, but there has to be a balance there. Like I said, that's part of being human. Once we grasp that our children are not so different from us, and that they are simply experiencing some big emotions that they need to release, we have to ask ourselves and remind ourselves to ask the question, what am I teaching with my response? It's almost scary how easy it is to take away the rationality from our child's response to something or their experience. Our children will learn very, very different things about our relationship, their relationship with themselves and their feelings, as well as the relationships that they'll have in the future with others and their big feelings, or their simple feelings in general, but it's going to change their sensitivity to all of those things and their understanding of how those three relationships should function depending on what you choose. A calm, gentle presence, a respectful presence, one that's understanding, or one that's perhaps harsh, critical, and maybe even physical. think we've pretty clearly established that this is normal, that our children need to release this tension, that they have to get out these big emotions, and sometimes we won't understand it, sometimes we can't rationalize it in our terms, in our world. For example, with Donovan, he loves cashew ice cream. If I don't close the freezer fast enough and he sees it, oh my gosh, like big X shape on the floor, flailing, just really, really devastated. It's hard sometimes, I understand, to think that that's a rational reason to feel big feelings and disappointment in the highest form. But it's completely rational for Donovan to feel that way and react that way. And it's completely understandable for him to be so disappointed and want to express that to me. So I think we have clearly established that tantrums need to happen. Tantrums are normal, and in fact they are so healthy. Children are so wonderfully gifted at figuring out when they need to release tension, when they need to let go and heal. Because if you do, just peacefully let your child work through how they're feeling. And it might take a while sometimes. Sometimes it'll be a little bit, like short and sweet. Sometimes Donovan will have a really, really difficult time for 15 minutes, and then he's good to go for the rest of the day, and that's amazing. I wish that we as adults could simply say, I need a moment to just detox, get this bad feeling out right now, address it, and move forward. Because that's what our children are really trying to do, if we can just let them and be a kind, gentle, loving, respectful presence for that time. Here are some ways to more easily do that. If you're in a public place, I highly recommend leaving. And when I say to leave, try just not to make it any worse. Say, I see you're having a really hard time, so I'm gonna make sure you have some privacy, okay? Come on. Hold your son or daughter and just gather your things and go to the car, outside. Maybe if there's like a courtyard, that would be ideal. Just get away from people, because my next point is to ignore your surroundings and focus on your son or daughter. Be 100% present. It's very difficult to do that when you're feeling super judged. I've been there completely. I understand. It's so hard sometimes because you might feel humiliated, and you might feel like, oh, everybody's looking at me, because they probably are. You might feel like, oh, people probably think like, oh, she needs to get her child under control, because they are. And that none of those thoughts and none of those perceptions, first of all, matter. But second of all, they're not going to help you be more present and there for your child in this time. And zoning in also applies if you can't get out of this public setting. If you really truly are stuck in a situation where you can't have any privacy, really focus in. I also really recommend having a mantra or two that you can really pull from at a moment's notice in the most dramatic, frustrating, maybe humiliating time ever. And it will work for you. Those two for me are, what am I teaching and what would I need in their situation? If you choose something that's not respectful, it's definitely going to be something that you probably don't want your child to learn, and you're going to want them to unlearn, and you're going to have to heal from that. So it's a really good one. It's such a good reminder. Also, what would I need? I would always need tenderness, more love, more affection, a hug, a hand to hold, someone to say, I'm here, I'm right here. That reminder just never ceases to amaze me, and how it just loosens my shoulders, gets me to breathe. And that's my third one too. Just breathe through it. That one is so key for me, because I can truly visualize myself in my son's shoes, or you in your daughter's shoes, and just understand that they need me to be that calm, confident presence. Breath is so important in a time like this for both you and your child, and I think it's something that is so easily modeled. So just simply breathing in for 4 and breathing out for 4. If you're feeling anxious or worked up, or like, I can't take it, I cannot take one more fit or I can't take my child's yelling, breathe. I promise you it will make a difference. Just breathe in for 4, really count. Breathe out for 4, really count. If you can, put your hand on your heart, your other hand on your belly, and really just breathe with your child. And it's such a good example to set for them because it truly helps in a time of extreme tension and heightened emotions. Foreshadowing is something that always helps me too. When I consider my child's needs and what he's going through, maybe when we moved here, for example, it was a big transition. A lot of things look different, feel different, sound different, smell different. Bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye, honey. I love you too. How far he's gonna get. Oh, I think the door will open. But there are different people around. I anticipated that he might have a hard time, and he did some days. Some days he, I think, was just really overwhelmed. It was a lot, and I had to make space for that to happen. I had to just anticipate it, know that it might be coming, and accept that in a loving, respectful way. Your child, like Donovan and every child in the world, cherishes something specific, and you know that there are specific times that that's acceptable to offer them or not acceptable. Plan for those times. Don't make the mistake that I make with the cashew ice cream and leave it in a place that Donovan can see it and get disappointed about not having it. Make it accessible only in the times that you're comfortable with your child having it and that, you know, it's reasonable. Like, Donovan cannot have cashew ice cream all the time. Just, it's not the way that we live our lives. So I decided to start putting it in a different freezer. Whoa, are you okay? You just tripped. You good? You good? So I decided to start putting it in the freezer in the garage so that when I feel like, oh, like today is a good night for a treat or something, I can go bring it and it's not a problem. There are also a couple of trigger words in our house, like bubbles. Donovan loves bubbles so much. And sometimes we don't want to do bubbles. Like in the house, we have the big bubble wands and they're huge and they do create like a giant mess. So we just refrain from talking about them. And I know that sounds so simple and like a no-brainer to help you understand when a tantrum could be coming or where it could be derived from, and just anticipating that and working through that. Lastly, self-care is probably the most important piece of this puzzle. How we're feeling has such a big effect on our response to anything that we're going through, but especially regarding the parent-child relationship. To be mindful of how you're feeling and how you're taken care of and how your needs are met is going to have a direct connection to how you respond to your children when they really need you or when they really need some tenderness, some understanding, some acceptance. I think we've all been there on days when we're feeling neglected, either from ourselves or maybe from a spouse or from some other source, or in general our needs are just not being met. It's so hard to treat anybody with tenderness because we just don't have much left to give. We don't have much patience. We don't have much understanding or empathy because we're just running on empty. Avoid not being able to be that calm, confident presence by taking care of you. It's going to make all of this so much more easy, so much more simple, and almost second nature, because I think we as mothers especially, we just want to be that source of love and tenderness for our children. It's all the things that weigh us down that make that difficult, and all of the things that we've had to unlearn that make that difficult. But it's in our nature to care for our children and to be there for them and to want to have that strong, tender relationship. Yeah, nobody. I'm sorry. Don't do it. Don't you do it. Don't. Aha. Okay, he dropped it. And that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always. You've got a little bit of snot there. Yeah. If you liked this video or found value in it, please give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that, and share it if you want to. I think we all need to start talking about... Yeah, babies. Hi, honey. I think we all need to talk more about how okay it is to feel. And on that note, I want to share a really amazing, powerful quote from Mr. Fred Rogers. People have said, "Don't cry," to other people for years and years. And all it has ever meant is, I'm too uncomfortable when you show your feelings, don't cry. I'd rather have them say, go ahead and cry. I'm here to be with you. Fred Rogers. Good, you can hold it now if you want to. You guys have any really good quotes like that remind you to empathize and to feel for your kids when they're having these big emotions? Even Donovan right now is actually having kind of a hard time. Please leave them in the comments. If you know what you need during that time, share that in the comments. Like, maybe you need a bubble bath, or maybe you like to play an instrument too. You have a way to really keep your composure and not get frustrated or take it personally when your child is having a tantrum. Leave that in the comments. Conversation regarding empathy and understanding each other's human experience is so powerful, and I'm so happy to ignite that. So please, let's all share our experience and all kind of give each other a little boost of encouragement and tenderness today. Hey buddy, do you want to come back up? If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate that. Follow me on Instagram, the Mellow Mama, over there also. Sorry, Donovan wants to brush his teeth. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, thank you.